as we are waking up, the ancient Egyptians said that there is one side of us, one part of us is the physical self, and the personality that responds to this world. We act and react and make decisions about our life. But on another side, you have this Ka. The Ka is this double of you, who is like an observer, who is like a all-wise, multidimensional self, who is an energy. So it can be anywhere. It can move here, there, do all the things that your soul knows, but your personality, earthly personality, may not yet have discovered, works outside time. So this multidimensional self, as we connect with our spirit more and more, becomes more and more prominent. And our personality then starts to listen to that wise voice instead of, no, this is what I'm doing.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spiritual Forum. I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to introduce you to my guests, but first I just want to thank everyone for participating in this podcast. And any way that you do it, whether you donate or participate on the YouTube by making comments or giving me ratings and reviews in Apple, or just sharing it with your friends, very much appreciate who you are and what you're doing to work with me on this voice of hope, inspiration, and awakening, because we know the planet needs hope, inspiration, and we're in a big process of awakening. So let me introduce you to Fotoula Adrimi. She's the director of the ISIS School of Holistic Health, an international school of healing arts, spiritual development, and inner transformation through vibrational energy work, enlightened teachings, shamanism, and meditation. She's a part of the global network of shamanic teachers under Sandra Ingerman. That's a big deal. I know Sandra Ingerman. This is a big deal if you're part of this global network. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Since 2014, Fatoula has been serving as a membership secretary and trustee of the Theosophical Society, the Glasgow Lodge. She lives and works in Glasgow, Scotland, and has taught in Germany and the Netherlands, and has led spiritual pilgrimages to Egypt. Her first book, The Golden Book of Wisdom, Ancient Spirituality and Shamanism for Modern Times, is an Amazon UK bestseller. And your current book is Sacred Mysticism of Egypt, which is what we'll be talking about today. So welcome, Fatoula.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here and sharing this information about ancient Egypt with all the viewers. So thank you so much.
Yeah, this is becoming a little more mainstream. So I'm really interested in what you have to say. And I'm hoping that our listeners today learn a lot, because a lot of what we think about this ancient history isn't necessarily true. And so I'm really looking forward to learning more from you. But before we do that, I've just got a few rapid fire questions. They should be easy, but just to get to know you a little bit more. Do you have a word or a phrase or any kind of sacred statement that either motivates you, exemplifies your life, or inspires you?
Yes, what I feel is I love working from my wise heart. And what really motivates me in the world is feeling that energy of deep love that comes from spirit in its pure form, and also that radiates from us when we elevate our consciousness. So I envisage and visualize a world that is filled from the energy that we radiate as enlightened beings in a body. So that is how I would like to see the world.
Wonderful. Gosh, thank you. Do you have any favorite place, or at least a favorite place that you're willing to share?
I have some favorite places, but of course, we're talking about Egypt, and Egypt is my spiritual home, especially the ancient Egyptian temples. And one of the places that I love there in Egypt, and it's not a very easy place because the energy is very high and very very have to go with a lot of respect in that place is Abydos temple, and the Osirian temple behind that is one of the places that I feel very much at home.
Oh gosh, thank you. Most of us haven't been to any of these places, so I really look forward to learning more about this. And maybe I'll take a sacred pilgrimage. I'm kind of inspired after reading your book. Speaking of inspiration, can you share in your life someone who is a particular inspiration to you?
Ah, that's well, one of my friends. I had some very good friends who were mentors and helped me when I didn't know anything. And one of the people who inspired me is my friend Ian, who is a psychic medium, and he has helped so many people. And what he did in his later life, he's retired now and old, but he went to work in a nursing home, and the reason he did that is because he could see how people needed help during the late stage of their life to pass from this reality to the other reality. And he lived a life of service to wherever spirit guided him. He knew that is my place, to help people, to entertain people, to make them laugh, and also to help them go to the other side in joy. And he inspired me. He really inspired me what it is to put your skills wherever spirit guide you in service to the world.
Wow, that sounds awesome. I think it's so interesting to hear about who inspired people because we all have somebody, and this person sounds so amazing. It sounds like he really was life changing. So thank you for sharing. Yeah. So Fatoula, why don't we hear a little bit about your story? It's so interesting, and just like you just talked about how when you knew nothing, it's hard for me to imagine that you ever did know nothing because it seems like you know a lot. So how did just tell us some of the high points of your life and how you've gotten to be this person who shares about the ancient Egyptians and the pyramids.
So I was born in Greece, and I think the reason I was born in Greece was because Egypt was across the Aegean, across the water. And of course, as a Greek woman, I was able to travel, go wherever I needed to go. And it was easy. If I was an Egyptian woman, I'm sure it wouldn't have been as straightforward. So I think I got as near I could to my spiritual home. And as a child, I had very much memories of Egypt, and I used to travel there, have like what I call now a shamanic journey. At those times, it would be like I find myself in these temples because this is where I feel good. This is where I see the light. And at the time, also as a child, I had so much compassion. I could understand why people behaved the way they behaved. I just knew they had some difficulties at home, etc. And and that lasted for a while. And I had spirit guides too. It was so natural. Everything was so natural for me at the time because there were no barriers. The child does not think, is this real, is this not real, am I making it up, or am I to have these guides, who was Mother Mary for me, as a guide, who I'm just a little girl, but the little child does not have these barriers, so everything was so natural. And then as I grew older and came to become a teenager, then I somehow lost it, because then the ego of this question, it's not right for you to speak to Mother Mary, only the priest can do that, it's,
Mm.
and all these kind of things, the fear of the paranormal that I never had before started to come in. And I focused very much on getting through my university exams. And somehow all the psychic ability went to bed, left me in some way. And then when I became 30, I was in Scotland by then. And I just woke up and everything made sense. I started believing and seeing these things, and I knew it was true. I knew everything I was uh, reading about healing was true, and I had great experiences, beginner's luck, as they say. So I tried to do my very first healing was on a dog that had a tumor, and I saw some blue lights. That's all that happened. But the next day, the tumor was a quarter of its size, and I did it again the next day, and again beginner's luck, second time. So the tumor disappeared. Now that was something that I have not been able to make happen again in the same way. I wish I could. I wish I had this magic wand, but it was like, this is so real, and this is where you're meant to be. And I used to wake up with words that were coming in ancient Greek, about ancient Greek deities, and then my love for Egypt reignited. It was something that drew me back where I was before. And so I started having these experiences. Isis came to me, the goddess Isis, who was with me as a child, and said that, would you be my teacher? And I said yes. And I had no idea what that meant. I was just so excited to receive that invite. And the next thing, this huge body of work, and you don't get to have many days off with Isis. This work is very intense. It has been coming through, and I've been teaching her work. I've been going to Egypt. I went there. I had initiations in the Great Pyramid, some of them from spirit, from the sites themselves, some from local people who are still doing the work there and recognized me. And then I started teaching the work. People started finding me, seeing me in their dreams, and coming to me and saying, do you work with Isis? And it took me some time, some effort to say yes, and eventually I accepted that this was to be. And so I kept working with her. I also studied in town planning in the Sorbonne, and then eventually in Scotland, working in Scotland. And my town planning career was very fulfilling as well. I had a lot of good things happen there too. But I had to leave it because the spiritual work was who I am inside. It was what I meant to do. So then the path became narrower and more focused. And what happened? Another side of me is the shamanic side.
Mm.
So from my father's side, my great grandfather was the last person who actually practiced properly what you would call somebody who's a healer in the community. And he tried to teach my father. My father was not interested. He's an engineer. He's a scientific mind, so he has that mind. So he basically said he wasn't interested, but he had to do it because he was the firstborn male. So the tradition is hereditary, and it goes within the family, and nobody outside the family can know anything about that. And I am the firstborn child, and I don't have any brothers, no men in the family. So but that wasn't open for me from my tradition, and I didn't seek it out. It sought me. So I happened to be in Glasgow, and I happened to go through a shamanic journey where everything opened up there. And I then trained in shamanism through indigenous shamans, as well as Sandra Ingerman, who is a very good friend of mine. And I was her assistant also last year, when she started teaching again the shamanic practitioners work. So it has been a wonderful journey, and I love shamanism. It's in my heart too. It's my passion too. And I was very lucky with some very good teachers and indigenous teachers too. And then I went back to my father and I said, "Look, Dad, I'm learning this. Is what you do as well in your own way. Can you teach me?" And he said, "No, that's not possible because you are a woman." And
Oh.
2 years, even my mother, who was like, who doesn't go into any of these things. He said, you know, she's doing it anyway. You might as well teach her. But my dad said, your grandfather told, great grandfather, my great grandfather, his grandfather, said that it's unlucky for women to do any type of this kind of work, magical work, shamanic work. They don't have the term shamanism in Greece. They would call it magical work.
Mm.
So he refused, and for 2 years I prayed to the spirits, and I was quite upset, of course, but I trusted. And after 2 years, he said, "Okay, I will show you what I know, what I remember, because so much was lost, and what was happening is that everything would have been lost if he didn't pass it to me." So I'm working with the spirits of my lineage as well, and they are bringing wonderful teachings through, and what I have gathered from the stories and the practices from my elders.
Well, there's so much to follow up with on that. Um, First of all, I have to ask you, I completely get that we as children, we're really okay with the magical, world that's beyond the material. It's something that's very normal for us, and then it kind of gets beaten out of us through socialization. So I really get that your teenage years, it's like you lost it, you forgot about it, and in your 20s, did anything happen in your 30s that caused you to wake up, or did you just like wake up one day?
Well, it was what happened was I was very unhappy in my life at the time. Things were not flowing. It was a difficult time. And my memory, which was always excellent, started to go. So I thought I must do something. So I went to the library and got some books on memory, emotional intelligence, and all of that stuff. One of the books that was in all this pile was called Magic to Magic, which was written by Betty Shine, who was a psychic medium in the UK in the 1980s, early 1980s. And I opened that book, and I knew whatever she was saying was so true. And that book was like the light bulb moment. So the next thing was, I mentioned the dog, was he said, find somebody to heal by visualizing blue light around them. And I do that with a dog, and I get this kind of result.
Uh-huh.
And I remember it was actually my ex-parents-in-law dog, and I said to them what I did. And they said, well, should we get the dog to the vet because we were going to have this tumor removed? And I thought, how should I know? I mean, I only visualize blue lights, and this is the result. But it was just the beginning, and then the synchronicities were amazing. The synchronicities that were happening. The first thing was that I found. Reiki, or it found me. I went for beauty therapy, was treat, and the woman there, the therapist there said, "Would you like Reiki?" I didn't even know what it was, and the next thing, my life gets really aligned, and I made some really tough decisions. And the decision was that I have to live my life the way that should flow, because I could see that the pieces had gone out of alignment, and it was my responsibility not leave it to life. I had to step forward and make these decisions. So as I started making these difficult decisions for my everyday life, things started to flow, and the information was coming. And then Ian, that I mentioned, was a great mentor, because I was seeing the spirits coming out of the wall, almost like faces. And I would get really scared. I just thought, what is this? And then he said to me, without me saying anything, that, the spirit guides were trying to communicate with me, but I was scared. Why was I scared? I didn't used to be scared, when I was a child. So what happened is I opened up to that again. It has been a long journey, and it's still going on because I'm still evolving, and we never stop. I still go and meet with shamans. I still have friends who are indigenous shamans. I still go on pilgrimage. I do my spiritual practices. And I'm very much on a path of which is very soul nourishing and makes sense to me.
Wow, what an interesting story. I mean, the words that I kind of pick up, flow is very important word, that if we really look at our lives, we could feel whether we're in flow or whether we're kind of hitting up against stuff all the time and feeling a lot of discord and disconnect, and flow is what we're looking for. The other thing that I heard you say is opened up to that. I think that's really important for everyone who's listening to remember that what our path is about is to stay open. I think to stay open to spirit and how we're being guided and what is next for us. And what we do is we close down often because we're afraid, and often because we're afraid. We're just afraid. We're afraid of how big life can be. Can you share when you say like you're working with Isis, what does that mean? How does that look?
Yeah, so in my case, what happens is that I feel her energy and her wings of light coming around me, and I feel immediately this huge surge of energy and love. There is so much love, so I feel this huge surge of love, and her words are very direct. I hear them in my mind, so I hear her saying, "This is what you need to do. This is the next step. This is, so it's usually when uh, I wish to connect with her, maybe because I have some questions. Maybe I'm doing a training. What are we going to do there? Maybe because I'm doing my spiritual practice. So I wish to connect with her. And there is some chants and words that she has given me to raise my vibration and do that. And then it's really like talking, like we are talking. So I
Mm.
really hear her very clearly. Her words are very clear, and it's almost like she's showing me what is important and not important, because sometimes the human mind may have a question, and she says, "Look, this is what you're asking. It's irrelevant, really, in the bigger scheme of things." And other times I say something, and I leave the room, and the solution has already arrived, and it's like things have changed. And it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. So what happens when what I feel about this spirit is that she's a teacher. And in ancient Egypt, her role was the mistress of Heka, and Heka is the power of creation that creates everything that we see around us. The early Egyptologists said that Heka was magic, so mistress of magic. But this, to me, is the power of creation. Now it is recognized that it's the power of creation and not kind of magic or witchcraft or something like that. So she says that she's a teacher, and that she meets us in different lifetimes. So she showed me my lifetimes before. She said, "You were in ancient Egypt, you did this work, you were my teacher then," meaning she was coming through and teaching through me. So now you're back from where you left. It's like a bridge of time. So it's almost like my lifetime then is continuing now. That's how I feel it.
Okay. So you also say that you talk with Mother Mary, you have communicate with Mother Mary, is that right?
When I was a child, I had
Okay, okay.
communication. Not anymore. Not
All right.
anymore. I think that was that stage of my life, and that was very different. So I would see Mother Mary in my mind's eye, and I had the questions of a child. And for example, I used to talk to her and saying, "What's the time now?" And I would see a clock, and she was showing me the time. Or I would ask her things about that she could answer, that there are things about that she could answer, a raffle at school. And I would say, "Is it possible?" And I would just like, "Please, please, 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 may I win that raffle?" And she said, "Okay, okay." And she usually said, "Okay," I have to say. And it was like, I used to be so lucky winning all these raffles. Eh, Until I became a teenager, that was the only time I felt guilty. I thought, now I'm using something that other kids do not have. It's not fair.
Yeah, yeah.
Until, I just, and then I took all that I had won, and brought it back to the school and saying, I don't want it anymore. Didn't say why I brought it back. But that was the time that I felt this guilt. Before, it was like joy, and it wasn't anything. Also, she was just Mother Mary. She was saying to me, this is what's happening. She would show me if somebody was trying to hurt me or it was something to be careful about. She would show me these things. So we had a very close relationship. It was so beautiful. It was really beautiful. But then that, I think, I was in this cocoon of light in a world that was very maybe that love was not there. So my soul was in that place where I was still keeping my heart open
Mm.
for everybody, having that compassion, because it's an environment, especially at school at the time. It was a hard place. It wasn't an easy place to be in Greece at that time. It was very strict. Everything was must be in a certain way. It was very orthodox, very religious. But I had a completely different life in that bubble.
Oh, wow. So interesting. All right. So let's get into, I really want to talk about, your access to these beings, and whether or not we all have access to that, but just aren't open. But perhaps we'll get to that in the end, because I really think we need to get into the ancient Egyptians and what you want to share with us about Egypt and what we know, what we don't know about it, and why it matters today.
Yes, absolutely. I think Egypt is a big portal of light. And I think it was constructed like that. That's what I remember. I think these pyramids that we see and these sites, these sacred sites, where they are both as temples to the divine, but as also as places where we can really feel that ascension, that higher vibration, that ascension into our spirit. And it's a place where when I take people there, even people who are not so open, I mean, they are open to come to my pilgrimage, but maybe they're not so connected. Everybody feels this sense of peace. And they might say, yeah, my mind stops talking because the vibration is so high. So when you are in that space, your mind, your conditioning stops chatting. So you can actually start to hear the wise self. And what the ancient Egyptians are trying to do is teach us about listening to the wise self and not to the conditioning of the world, listening to the inner voice, the inner teacher, becoming that divine self in the body. And what Isis, as a teacher, what she's saying is that all these teachings that they had, their purpose was the resurrection, not from the dead, but from the dead state, from the inert state, coming, becoming your spirit and not sleepwalking. And then you do that practically in your life by following a good life, what they call the rule of math, being in justice, living a life of justice and truth. And then also through the spiritual teachings, it's a bit bigger than that. It takes you to the divine order of things, and it takes you into your inner light. So the spiritual level, so it's above the mental level. The mental level could be, okay, I live my life in a just way, but the spiritual level is, I'm connected to all. My place is here in this universe, and everything is in divine order.
So there's something about the pyramids that they're constructed as some sort of energy centers or something. I think I've been reading about this. I've been seeing documentaries about this, and you know, along with almost everybody, was raised that these pyramids are, you know, where we buried the pharaohs, and that somehow they were put together, and we don't know how. Must have been slave labor. We're looking through the current paradigm of how could this possibly be and what is it, because we're so disconnected from the possibility of what it really is, some sort of energy center. This is so interesting, and I think it's so important that we start realizing that what we've been taught is not necessarily true, and that we've been kind of cut off from accessing the truth. And so what is it that really matters to us today about Egypt and the pyramids? Why does learning about this matter, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's because this place is still alive,
Uh-huh.
because these energy centers that the pyramids are, that the temples are still working. And that's why the ancient Egyptians called these temples. Some of the temples are called the temples of the millions of years. And they actually put the ceremonies that they did with all the enlightened beings and the priests and the priestesses, they inscribed these ceremonies on the walls. And the reason they did that, they say, is that we've energized these hieroglyphs, these symbols, these pictures that we draw. We energize them day after day so that the energy stays for the children of the future. And these temples of millions of years are still alive. So, what they are doing in ancient Egypt is knowing that this time of corruption we are living through is going to come, and that at some point we will be waking up to our spirit. They prophesize this time, like other cultures have done, and that it's important to build that place for that time where we are going to be waking up. And they had incredible technology, the pyramids. I mean, how can we believe that they are built by slaves? We don't know nothing. Can we see this is a very, very
Yeah.
skilled labor? You know, somebody knows what they're doing. They're not just a slave. These are engineers. They are
Mhm.
absolutely wonderful engineers. And people have studied the pyramids and all the mathematical equations that people have written about them. And it's amazing. But what we need to also remember is that they are bringing the etheric energy both in a practical way. So now we are relying on fossil fuel for our energy. Well, they use the energy of the cosmos, they use the
Mhm.
energy of the ether, and they use that through construction like the pyramids. And then they also know that this etheric energy is the life force energy. So they use the same energy for the elevation of consciousness and healing of the body, healing of the mind. And they use the same energy, they work with the same energy for their ceremonies. So it's what, you know, shamans still work today, but they did that too in a very beautiful way through the mystery schools. And studying the mystery schools is a road back to remembering, because Egypt lasted for thousands of years, and before that there was this previous civilization, this previous era. So maybe our journey has been part of that time. So for me and for many others, is also about remembering our origin as beings of light, that we're something much more. And these ceremonies, they start at some point to feel very familiar. So Egypt has a lot to teach us about our spiritual path, but also our path as the human race, where we're going now.
Yeah, okay. So, you know what this makes me think of? It makes me think of the arc of your own life in that we started off as these light beings, and then something happened that caused us to forget, like our teenage years, as a civilization, like our teenage years. And now we're in this age of corruption, and at the end of this, we'll be hopefully in our like 30s, like you were, and awaken to the truth. Is that what you think is happening?
I think so, and this is really a myth. I mean, the Egyptian myths, these stories that we think, oh yeah, they're beautiful stories, fairy tales, etc. They have deeper truths, and one of the most well-known myths is the story of Osiris, Isis, and Horus and Set, who kills Osiris, his twin brother. So Osiris is this king who is so much in his heart, everything prospers because there is enlightened government, and he's just all giving and all loving. But he's very naive, like this little child. He always forgives people because he sees the good in everybody. Even his brother tried to kill him, and he forgives him the first time because he thinks, yeah, he just made a mistake. It's okay. He can still be my brother.
Mm,
And but then out of that comes Set, who is his twin brother, who is the jealous brother, the hurt brother. All these teenage years, the conditioning, the he is the one who kills that heartful king. So for me, Osiris is the heart, that early time, and Set is the conditioning, the corruption that we feel right now, that we live through right now, and that is part of us too, is part of this human nature. And then at some point, Horus is realizing that he's not in sovereignty. His sovereignty is given to Set. Set has usurped his
mm,
crown. And what happens is we don't have clear thinking. The conditioning tells us what to think. There is a psychic soup of thoughts and thought forms all around us as well, on top of the conditioning as well. And then we realize that there is the spirit. So Horus is the spirit who awakens up, and he has to almost like go into battle with Set. And the battle is a bit sometimes like an internal battle that everybody who is walking in a spiritual path at some point may have felt, I don't want to meditate. I don't want to do any spiritual practice. I just want to watch TV and leave me alone. And there is like a battle to do what you know is good for you. And that's part of that inner battle between Set and Horus to regain our crown chakra, our crown center, so that we have this direct connection with the divine. And I've seen this energetically. So I've seen, how. From our crown, we have above our crown, we have the eighth chakra. And this is where the ancient Egyptians said it was our etheric self, access to our multidimensional etheric self. And Isis has a hieroglyph, a symbol on her crown that is called the throne. So it's to be, your spirit is sitting on the throne. But actually, for most people that I've seen, that when we are in our conditioning, that connection is interrupted.
mhm,
It's not
mhm.
going straight to the crown chakra, to the etheric self. Is actually not as prominent, not as much there. And when we feel connected, we become so present. When we are in that place of really being here, being so present, that connection goes straight up, and we can feel that. But most people cannot hold that connection for very long. But the ancient Egyptians had incredible practices and ceremonies. Ceremony was really at the heart of the mystery school of becoming these sacred beings, these teachers, Isis, Set, and Osiris, playing out these dramas they call theodramas, and really linking in with these teachers, and seeing their life through their eyes.
So we have this inner battle going on with, I can't remember them all, Horus and Set,
Yeah.
and who was the other one? Yeah, Osiris. And then we also have this cultural one, like our whole culture, our whole where we are in humanity's evolution. Where do you think we are? Do you think we are still, we're still very immersed in Set, uh, Set kind of energy and culture? Do you think we're emerging out of that now, or do you
I,
think we are in kind of stuck in it?
I think we are. I think we are at this cusp. I think we are at the changing times. And that's why it's so difficult. And that's why we are sometimes don't know what's going to happen, shifting suns, everything changes so quickly. So the energy is very strong. The energy that's flowing on the earth, the etheric energy is very strong. And there are changes all the time. And somehow it's good. We haven't blown up ourselves yet, and there's not the destruction that happened in the previous era. And I think there is so much hope, because what happened there is that world almost was destroyed by the great flood. But in this new world, the destroyer of that time was Sekhmet. In Egypt, they call her Sekhmet. She came and destroyed, as the story goes. She was the destroyer. But after the destruction, she turns into the healing side, the healing spirit. So before she's the lion, now she's the cat. So her this change means that we have to not destroy this world but heal this world. So instead of starting again, from scratch as we had to do, we actually have to work together, elevate our consciousness, and heal the trauma of what happened before, even what happened with the Great Flood, because that was a very, very traumatic event. I think that the karma of that is still with us. So we need to heal the past and to step into our future. And the ancient Egyptians had this prophecy, and they talk about three things. And the first thing is knowledge, spiritual knowledge. And there is a thirst for people to know more, to study the ancient texts or to study spiritual books. And sometimes this knowledge is great, but it takes you only so far. This is the first level. And the second, and symbolized by the papyrus plant. And the next one is the wisdom. Is the wisdom comes from within. So maybe you have the knowledge, you studied, but then the inner voice is speaking through you. This wisdom is like awakening within you, these aha moments that bring you the realization. And that is symbolized by the ibis bird. And the third one is the most difficult one, and that is still not there. So the first two signs, the papyrus and the ibis, they have come back to Egypt. They had disappeared for a while, and now they are back, and there are loads of them. But the lotus flower is not there, and the lotus symbolizes the white lotus, is the awakening, but also unconditional love, and
Mm.
we still have some work to do there. So we are in the process, we're on the road, but that is the third sign. So for some time during these changing times, Set is on the throne, the usurper, the conditioning, the what you call the corruption time is still there. But at the same time, Horus is growing up, hidden away in the Marses. So you could say that yes, there is all this corruption in the world. We can see it in in the leaders and whatever, politics, everything that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
there. But underground in the marshes, hidden away, all this beautiful spiritual knowledge is coming. All these beautiful grassroots programs are coming, are taking place. People are coming together in circles again. People are seeking something more. And as long as we stay in our heart and we don't go into the ego, then we are doing well.
Oh gosh, I love that. I have a similar hope and vision. So it seems like we're on this precipice. Like we could go through destruction again, like the floods, and and that's going to be a choice. And but at the same time, something's going on that's like a new awakening and an opening and a rebirth, and that we have this possibility then to choose to go to the direction of really blossoming as spiritual beings in human bodies. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So my hope is that this time can be a healing time, and so many people are looking into healing, are training into healing, and they're looking really into the healing of their mind and their heart and their emotional and mental body, because mental illness is actually so hard and more difficult. The spirits told me that you can have a physical illness, but you're still connected. But sometimes, if you are suffering from something in your mental body, that really disconnects you from yourself, and that is so hard for you. So many people are now training in these art healing arts to heal both mind and body, which is wonderful.
So the healing path, healing trauma, our trauma, ancestral trauma, um, cultural trauma.
Yes.
That's part of the path of the awakening, and that we will remember, but not just in our head, that we will live again, embody ourselves as multidimensional beings, as the early Egyptians knew that we were.
Yes, I think that as we are waking up, we are, the ancient Egyptians said that there is one side of us, one, part of us is the physical self and the personality that responds to this world. We act and react and make decisions about our life. But on another side, you have this uh, Ka. The Ka is this double of you who is like an observer, who is like a all-wise, multidimensional self, who is an energy. So it can be anywhere. It can move here, there, do all the things that your soul knows, but your personality, earthly personality, may not yet have discovered, works outside time. So this multidimensional self, as we connect with our spirit more and more, becomes more and more prominent. And our personality then starts to listen to that wise voice instead of, no, this is what I'm doing.
It's exciting. I mean, it's like we're on the planet at this really exciting time. Can I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and have you share more about shamanic journeying and how that influences your life and your practice. And I also want to hear about your ISIS School of Holistic Health and what you're doing there.
Yes, so shamanism is another passion of mine. I just love shamanism. I love the drum, and it's a big part of me. So when I started, I trained, as I said, with Sandra Ingerman, and I'm teaching the shamanic work, and I'm also teaching the shamanic work of my ancestors. And I journey. I journey to the spirits, and I journey for healing, for my own healing. I journey for insights. I have a relationship with them. So I have an altar. I make sure that I open my sacred space, and I have this connection with them throughout my day. And also, what happens for me in the shamanic journey is opens my perspective, and is like whatever I need to see or hear, or meet with my helping spirits, or if I have a question again, I can, through the journey, I find myself going wherever I need to go. So I also love doing shamanic healing for people, just because I find it so good, and it's absolutely fascinating, because what we think may be the problem is what we think with our mind.
Mhm.
Sometimes the spirits will give us a completely different perspective, that when I communicate with people that, this is what the soul said is the problem, they just like tears, eventually somebody realizing that, yes, this is what is the problem, or this is how I feel inside. I didn't know that. I thought it was something else. So the shamanic journey can go very, very deep, very deep. And yeah, it's something wonderful and so ancient.
Yeah, I took a workshop with Sandra Ingerman a long, long time ago, like 1995, and, it was such a fascinating experience. And then I did it for a while. So for people who don't know what shamanic journeying is, let me see if I can articulate it a little bit, because there's a certain drum beat that's at a certain frequency, a certain vibration, and it causes us to be able to journey into non-ordinary reality. At least this is what I learned, either the lower world, which is more of like the earth world, and then the upper realm was more like the spirit world. And it was so fascinating. So in some way you're actually you're actually like your soul is going there, or your psyche is going there or something, and then there's different guides that you kind of communicate with, and meet. That was my experience, and the power animals and all of that
Yeah.
is fascinating. And I explain that well?
Yeah, absolutely perfect. I mean, I was you put much better than me. That's great because tomorrow I'm teaching a workshop introduction to shamanism, so I'm going to explain that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I loved it, and I did it this with a friend, and both of us were engineers, so we had very, very kinda left brain, and we were, like, the only really left brain people in this workshop, but we both had really interesting experiences, and afterwards, we we worked, for an energy company, and we would, like, at lunch, we would meet in a room, and we would do shamanic journeying together, but then it kind of I don't know, I think I got moved to another place, but I kinda dissipated. It was like you going from childhood to your teenage years. It was like I just kind of forgot about it, you know? I got distracted with life. I had children, family, and got
yeah.
distracted with life, and I haven't really gone back to that. But it's an extraordinary experience. So I'm just really was interested in hearing about how you use that. Um, so tell me about your school. So who comes to your school? People who want to learn how to be healers?
Well, people can come to learn how to be healers. People can come because they are seekers. People can come because they are on a spiritual path and they really want to live again the mysteries of ancient Egypt. So we have a section which is about the ancient mystery school of Egypt, which is it's a lifetime path. Actually, Isis says it spreads over many lifetimes. So you might have started in another life and you're meeting it again.
Mhm, mhm.
And her teaching is vast, and it's so beautiful because now we have a community of initiates. We all come together and do the ceremonies, and it's very much a ceremonial path and an experiential path. And then we have the school of shamanism, where I teach the shamanic work, the journeying work, the healing work, also how to work with the drum and the vibration of the drum, which is something more from the indigenous teachings, because in the West we don't go into the cosmology of the drum and how we can really work with its triple spirit. So it's a lot there as well. And then there is another teaching that I received in Scotland from some spirits called the priestesses of the moon, and they were ancient women, and they asked about empowering women to do ceremonial work again and bringing that back from the ancient stones and the stone circles. That was communicated, and I've been teaching that now for 13 years. So I teach a priestess path as well. And another thing that I love, there's so much of me, and it's all part of me. It's not one more than the other. It just all fits together. I was given a very beautiful teaching about working with the DNA, the spiritual DNA. That our DNA has also an etheric side, and this teaching I received again 2012, and it's called the Rays of Divine Consciousness. And it's a series of meditations working through the 12 rays and one master ray, the 13th ray encompassing all, that basically brings um, different aspects of divine consciousness, healing different aspects of divine consciousness in the body. And we do a monthly transmission of that, which is free for anybody who's interested. And lastly, past life regression is something that I love to do because I have experienced my past lives, and I know it's not just information. There is something here about karma, about bringing closure, about healing the past, and about also finding the soul parts that may be stuck in another life and healing
Mhm,
that
mhm.
death that never took place in a proper way, and bringing that back to us. So that's a big part of my work as well. So there's so much there that we do, and and it is really something that it all fits together very organically. So people start to come to us maybe because of the Isis path, and then they go into shamanism as well, and then they come to the retreats, which are a very beautiful sacred space to do this work in a retreat, or to a pilgrimage in Egypt. But yeah, there's so
And is this all in Scotland, or can people do this online as well?
Yeah, people can do it online. Actually, I'm starting the a series for it's once a month, and it's a webinar of an introduction to the ancient Egyptian mystery school. So this can be done online, live or pre-recorded. And there's also the ancestral work through the shamanic path and of my lineage that is very, very deep and beautiful, and that can be done live online as well. That's starting in October. So there's a lot there, yeah, online too. Just for people, go on the website, the IC School of Holistic Health.com, and you can see all that we do. And if you have any questions, please get back to me. I would love to hear from you, because you might have. There is so much there. Sometimes people say, "Where do I start?" There is so much that you do, and then they realize it's just me and my colleague. There's just the two of us. But somehow it all works out.
It sounds like what you're doing is you're kind of an instrument for healing and midwifing us to this new age, like helping us birth ourselves as interdimensional beings and leaving the world of set the corruption and that we're whoever's attracted to your work is going to be part of this evolutionary process.
I think so. I never thought myself as a midwife, but I think you are very right. That feels so right. It is like that. What I feel is that it's almost like, opening a door, an invitation. Come and walk this spiritual path for the next stage, where we are going. And our soul, if our soul wants to do that and it feels right and resonates, please come. Yeah.
I love this. So you really have a message of hope. I really have a message of hope and inspiration and awakening, all of it. So, Fatoula, I think we could talk a lot longer because there's so much to cover. But we are coming to a close. And I'd like to know, what else would you like us to know about either your work or Egypt or who we are or where we are on our path, whatever it is that we might not have covered? What do you think is important for my listeners to hear?
I think the message I keep hearing from my helping spirits is to trust, and I think one thing about going through this new era is we have to trust our inner voice, and to trust in the goodness of our heart and the goodness of humanity too, because there is that goodness there, even if it's covered up with the corruption. There is amazing, amazing heart there. So we are a unique bunch of souls who have come during these times. So many souls want to incarnate during this time. And we are here, and it's a very, very privileged position to be. We don't realize we have actually won the lottery already. We don't need to win it. We just for being here, because this is a time of transition, and we can transition into the divine self, something that we have been dreaming at soul level for maybe thousands of years. So this is a time to step up, to step into our light, and and trust our inner voice, and not the ego and not the mind.
That's a great, great message. I think trust is so important. And it's so easy to get mired in the corruption and what's going on out there and getting, you get sucked into it and you start kind of glomming onto this thing or that thing. And we're being called higher. We're being called to really to participate in this amazing rebirth. And the work that you're doing is calling us back. It's calling us home. So thank you so much, Fatoula, for coming on today and for your book. It's amazing learning so much about Egypt. We barely scratched the surface of that. And for your work. And you still do pilgrimages to Egypt?
Yeah, well, the next pilgrimage I think will be 2027. We'll see, because I have a dream. It's like comes in a dream. Isis comes and says, "You're going to Egypt. This is where you're going. These are the sacred sites, and this is how many people are coming. Go and organize that." So I'm kind of have an inkling that this next dream is coming for 2027, but as it hasn't come yet, I'm not quite sure how it's going to plan out. So
Okay, interesting. I've
yeah,
got a lot of stuff on my mind for 2027 too. And now, why am I planning 2027? Maybe it's because of this. Maybe I'll be joining you. We'll find out.
that would be wonderful. But Sacred Mysticism of Egypt, the book, does have so much information, and also rituals and practices and an initiation process to open that door to the energy, because the energy is so powerful, it's so beautiful, and
It
I hope
is.
it helps it helps
Yeah.
everybody who reads it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Fatoula. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I think we were very enriched today, and I just feel so much hope and a lightness of being about what's going on and the privilege that we have being here at this time. So appreciate all of that. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. And Fatoula, thank you again. And I now close the spiritual forum.
Thank you so much. Thank you.